and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week is Mr. Pokemon himself. It is Bobby. He's actually got some decks in stores now, which we will talk about on the Brokehead blog, but welcome back, Bobby.
Thanks for having me. Let's go! Shout out Millennial Mike.
It's his catchphrase. He's got to say that the next time he's on. If this is your very first episode of the show, though, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the Brokehead block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Bobby and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 552. So it seems like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are all over the news lately, and Northampton, Massachusetts, they have greenlit a plan to create and install 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themed manhole covers to celebrate the fact that the massive franchise was originally created there. So to pay for it, the town is using $20,000 in funds intended to help rebuild towns and businesses affected by the pandemic. And as reported by WCVB, the 4 manhole covers will be located along Main Street, and each one will represent a different turtle. So if there's a brokehead out there in that town of Northampton, Massachusetts, let me know how you feel about this. But as an outsider, Bobby, how do you feel about those COVID funds being used to pretty much artsy up their manholes?
So yeah, that's the political side of it, and everybody's going to have their own 2 cents on it, so whatever. If you disregard that, I think that's a really cool idea. Really neat concept. Cool thing to do to pay homage. And it creates like a little bit of a tourist attraction. I think that's the way that they're going to spin that is, hey, we can promote this and people will come to our cities and towns where these manholes are and they'll spend money there, because I guarantee you not just the manhole's going to be there. They're going to have, a stand with some merch that they're going to be selling and, whatever. They're going to theme all that stuff. And I think that's pretty cool because they're going to have money to feed back. And I'm 100% sure that that's how they're going to spin this. Yeah, there's argument to be made that this is poorly funds being used and all the dramatic things you're going to hear, like, how dare you? Who cares? This is cool and it's going to bring money back. I don't have all the context here, but it really seems like this is going to be like a small tourist attraction. And who doesn't know who TMT is? So I think it's pretty cool.
I think you and I have the benefit of living in Florida and being near the theme parks where, I don't know if you came up with the same idea too, but I'm like, depending on how these manholes look, they should print up pins, they should print up t-shirts with those manholes on it, depending on how creative and unique each one of them looks, and have them right there on Main Street, or have them in the town, in City Hall, wherever it is that they can sell these things at the gift shops, and make use of those designs for more than just a photo op.
Oh, 100%. You better believe there's going to be more to it than just a manhole on a street. They're going to set up a little tourist attraction around it.
Some people have brought up the fact that manholes are removable. Do you think that these will be just to look at initially? Do you think they'll leave them out and hope that people don't steal them? Will they permanently be installed and not come up? How do you feel like they should handle that?
That's not going to be a removable one. It's going to be permanently installed, so you can't remove it. Think of like a slab in Stars of Hollywood, something like that. So it'll be a permanent fixture.
Let's hope so, because the worst thing would be to see them immediately get stolen or have something happen to them. All 4 of the turtles, though, will be there. I don't know what kind of stuff the town does normally, but having a parade or something on top of that to really celebrate the turtles, have people out there dressed up and do like a little meet and greet. I mean, if I were them, I would continue to push that, as they have in the future, just to sell more merch, as you said, kind of like that Superman town in I think it's called Smallville, up in Illinois, where they have a big Superman statue. Just have that available every year and really make use of all of this being created there. Kevin Eastman, I think, that's the town that he and Peter Laird initially created the Turtles at. So move forward with it. Good on them. Again, like you said, a lot of politics on the 20,000, but I'm sure that was voted upon for good or bad, whether they agreed or not, or maybe they were better off as far as the pandemic and weren't as affected by it, so they're using these funds for that instead. But as a fan, you and I are fans, and I didn't put it in the show notes here, but there's the TMNT movie coming out. I'm sure there's more cartoons. The comic book is still kicking, and it's still doing really well.
20K falls in comparison to most controversial topics with misused money. So let's just be honest here.
Absolutely. And I didn't put it in the show notes, but what were your thoughts on that TMNT film that they just announced? It's not stop motion, but it uses the same type of animation that Into the Spider-Verse did.
I think it's freaking amazing. I can't wait for it. That's movie of the year right there. Like it looks so good. And I know everybody's complaining about Donnie's voice. Who gives a shit? This is a children's take on the turtles, like them being kids, like kids, not the adult versions that we're used to seeing. So that's why they sound like kids. And why everybody's going to pick on Donnie? Well, why does Donnie sound that way? Well, he's the nerd, so of course he's going to sound that way. I don't care. At first, I was like, "What?" And then I really thought about it. I was like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." And then everybody wants to pick on April. You know what? Go to hell. Who cares what she looks like? If you're worried about what she looks like, then go watch and look at your illegal stuff on Twitter with all the weird stuff. Go be with the weird people. This looks amazing. Yes, we only saw a short clip, but it looks really cool. I'm for it. Can't wait for it. I hope everybody enjoys it as well.
I'm on the opposite end of this one, but I'm not necessarily hating on it. I'm not going to go see it in theaters unless Leo really wants to go see it. Then I'll go with him. But this one's not for me. I don't think it's marketed towards an older TMNT fan base. I do think that they sound really young, especially Donnie, that being my favorite turtle. I'm like, all right, so it's a younger set of turtles. They're even younger than teenager, or maybe 12 I guess 13, maybe a little. They sound like they're 8 years old, 9 years old. So I don't know if they're eventually going to age them up as the series continues. So I had an issue with that as well. And the animation looked incredible, though. I was initially fooled into thinking that it was stop motion, and it's not, but it has the same effect, and I love that. As far as April, I've seen some stuff come up online and I've seen the original comics of they intended the original appearance of April did not have the bright red hair that you see in most of the modern takes today, and she was in fact of mixed race, of Asian and I believe African American, I think, but she definitely looked Asian.
It's true. A lot of people don't realize that.
So when you go back to the origin, they could go in that direction, which they may have. We don't know what it is on here, but the more iconic look is, of course, the yellow jumpsuit with the red hair. I think that's the one that most people are recognize, or at least that I recognize. And that's why, again, I don't think that they're aiming at the older fan base with this. I think they're trying to get some kids into it. And as long as they're into turtles, then they'll check it out. And if Leo catches it, the movie trailer, and he wants to go see it, great, I'll take him for it. But I think I'm a little bit aged out at this point for turtles, because what could they offer in this movie, right? That an adult like me would be like, oh shit, seeing like in that first movie, seeing the turtles take on Shredder in the rooftop and Raphael yelling "damn" all over the place. They're not going to do that anymore with the turtles.
No, they're offering you the light of your child enjoying that movie because they can relate to it. That's what they're offering you. We're seeing a take on kids. The trailer clearly shows them screwing around with weapons. And they don't know how to do it, like do stuff, and it's really cool. They're just goofing around. It's like kids in the schoolyard after school, and they're just curious. And this is different because they're siblings, so they're teenagers, young teenagers, obviously, and they're just goofing off. I think that's really cool. Whereas the modern take, they're more serious and disciplined, and fight our enemy. Which, granted, we've only seen a minute and a half of this movie per trailer, so there's a lot more to be seen. This is an early take. I think it looks amazing, and I like the direction it's taken, and we'll see what it provides later.
Closing it out, as always, the Turtles are a franchise that have been rebooted and reimagined so many times, even in the last 10 years. So if this isn't your thing, there will be another Turtles show. There will be another Turtles movie. It's only a matter of time before they do another version. People talk about the multiverse. There was an old Nickelodeon special that they came out with where they had the older Turtles come back into the main universe. So it's been done before with the Turtles. They will relaunch. They will reboot. And if you like this movie, then check that out, support it with your money, and then there will be sequels. Toho ended up taking to Twitter, Toho from Godzilla, to ask fans what character Godzilla should have a crossover with next. So top answers included Ultraman, Gamera, and Cate Blanchett's Tar. That third one was my favorite. Someone just threw up a picture of Tar, and I'm like, shit, like her looking all serious, and I'm like, that would be amazing. But for you, as I don't know if you're too big into Godzilla, but is there a big monster or crossover that Godzilla should go over into, or another universe that they should jump in with?
Cory in the House.
Cory in the House, like Smash Brothers?
Yeah, if we're gonna throw core in the house.
Some people were suggesting the DC universe.
I mean, Warner Brothers did or Legendary Pictures did the earlier movies, right? So it gets weird though because the size in comparison. If you're gonna take Godzilla, it needs to be something bigger. You start taking smaller, like the Power Rangers make sense because they can turn into Megazord, stuff like that. But you take like Batman or DC Universe, it's just human-sized people.
Yeah, and I think it does make sense. Like you said, Power Rangers. Another one that was up there was Pacific Rim, which they haven't done a lot with lately. So I don't know if that would be a popular one. But I think Ultraman being the most popular answer is the most feasible. If they can work Ultraman into the next film, and I get that the idea is goofy of like this person turning real big. And it's like, yeah, whatever. They can write it in there somehow. If they wanted to ground it into something, they could go into like the Pacific Rim route where you're able to churn a machine into a larger machine, or do the Power Rangers route where you're able to get into the machine. But if we get Ultraman in that next film or in sometime in the future with Legendary Pictures, I think that would go a long way with the fan base.
I mean, they can just cross it over Marvel and do Ant-Man. It's perfect.
There's also, is it Giant Man? No, that's DC, isn't it? No,
DC is Atom Smasher. He was in Shazam.
And so bring the Rock can go big too.
Yeah. They bring Black Adam back with The Rock, and you have Atom Smasher, and they fight Godzilla. There, solved it.
Yeah, you can watch that one. I'll pass on it. But we do have some video game news as well, as more from our childhood is coming back. A new entry in the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series has been announced to be in the works by Bandai Namco. So no release date has been given yet. I initially questioned this a little bit because I'm like, all right, Dragon Ball Fighter Z was the fastest Dragon Ball selling game of all time. So I'm like, all right, they're going to do a sequel real soon. And I was wondering why they didn't. But these are two completely different game developers, Bandai Namco and Arc Systems, or whatever they're called. I think they did Guilty Gear. They're working on completely different games. So it's very possible that we will get that Dragon Ball Fighter Z2 sequel at some point. We're not getting Tenkaichi in place of this. But I do have some memories of Tenkaichi. Have you had any run-ins with the game? Have you played it? It was popular back when I was in high school.
Nah, I'm not a Dragon Ball fan. Sorry, Julian. Dragon Ball sucks.
If it were One Piece Tenkaichi, then you'd be into it.
Oh yeah, One Piece would be amazing. One Piece Z Budokai Tenkaichi. Yeah. So all you DBZ, DBS fans, come at me. I don't care. Your series sucks. Your characters suck. They're all the same person with different color hair, and then they get an extra god name because they grow bigger. Get the fuck out of here.
I will tell you, I do have a memory with these games. I don't think I ever owned any. My brother had one or two of them. But the first time I played it was at my friend's house, and he fucked me over pretty good with this game because we were playing, and I'm kind of button smashing. I'm kind of figuring it out, and I'm actually winning. And he owns the game, so he's like, "Whoa, wait, hold on, wait." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Hold on, just let me do something. Let me see something." And he starts powering up all his bar all the way to the max, and then he goes Super Saiyan 3, and he's like, "All right, I'm ready." Destroys me, and I'm like, "You motherfucker!" I was so pissed at him. But anytime you beat your buddy at hit the game that he owns and you don't own it, they get pissed, man. And he was not letting me have it. I'll always remember that, Matt, from my childhood. I'll always remember that, and I'll never forget it. I'll never let you pause the game again. It's not happening. Fool me once, shame on me. Sony's getting desperate, as this week they suggested. Maceo and I were talking about this in the break room. He was like, yeah, they're throwing everything up there. They're suggesting that Microsoft would, quote, add bugs and errors during the final level of Call of Duty, end quote, when it came to the PlayStation versions of those games. So their argument now, they've tried the argument that there's no contract in place that would guarantee games for their systems, and Microsoft has offered it. It's there. Nintendo has accepted it. We are seeing deals with, not Steam, but there was another, Nvidia. They did a deal there. And now Sony's saying that they would purposefully sabotage the PlayStation versions of these Activision Blizzard games just to make the Xbox and PC versions the go-to for gamers. So how do you feel about this sense of fear and desperation that Sony is now giving the different boards?
I think this is a fake hot take, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter in what way, as in like it's still going through, or it's not
No,
going to have
that's
any relevance.
what corp exec or lawyer would say that phrase. Like that's just not real.
Oh, you don't believe the statement at all from
No,
Sony?
the statement's not from Sony. They can
Well,
complain and they'll defend themselves and they'll make things up, but that statement is there's no proof. So why would you say it? Even a lawyer wouldn't say that.
let's flip this around then. Do you think that would be something that Microsoft would do? Let's say the deal goes through and everything is fine, and we're getting Call of Duty on all the systems. Do you feel like they would purposefully put in bugs, or what I was suggesting is maybe they would prioritize the PC or Xbox versions over the other ones, but purposefully sabotaging those versions? I mean, do you think that that's a possibility ever?
It opens a bigger Pandora's box of problems that are legally actionable.
Hmm.
So they can't sabotage it, is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, Sony might be pissed that Microsoft owns that product, but that can't actually happen. It could happen, but Microsoft wouldn't be, or insert name of company wouldn't be dumb enough to actually do that. That's stupid.
As you were saying, if it were provable,
sabotaging yourself.
Yeah,
you'd have
they
to
would
be
get in
provable.
trouble.
Yeah, legally, and like the backlash would be ridiculous.
As I said on Discord, if I were Microsoft, I would make sure that there was extra polish. I would have more of my team working on the Xbox and PC versions. I will admit that. And I don't know if that's illegal, because we see it now. We see it with like Nintendo Switch games that are ported from current gen and everything, where they just don't run as well on Switch or on PC or whatever. We see it every time a game releases. So I think doing it that way would be feasible. I'm not saying they should do it, but I think that I could see that argument of you guys are going to prioritize your system's versions of games, but saying that this is all a giant sabotage, I mean, that's a weird take, and I don't think I agree with you. I don't think that that's going to ever happen.
This franchise is one of the biggest and makes the most money outside of like Pokemon, but Pokemon's different because it's only on the Switch. But if you take this one that's on multi-platform, this is the biggest moneymaker, and that's why there's so much attention around this merger. Obviously, there's other games involved, World of Warcraft and Overwatch and stuff like that, Diablo. There's other properties that are in the mix. The reason why this is so a microcosm just on Call of Duty, because it's the number one selling franchise. There's too much money to be made for Sony to not embrace this if it were to eventually happen, because they stand to make a lot of money off of it too. All those sales that occur in their PSN stores for digital downloads, they're going to get money for that. That's first party sales. So it's not like they're just going to sit there and not make money. They're just angry that they think, we don't know the proof yet, that that their things are going to be taken away from them. And yes, there is a slice that's being taken away from them because they've had exclusives to the Sony platforms for all these games every year. That's fact. We don't know those dollar amounts because of that, but there has been exclusives. But it doesn't mean that the game hasn't been playable on all platforms, because it has. So in the end, they're going to make the money. Will they have less access to it? Probably, because they won't get a funnel directly to Sony that says, hey, play here, get this exclusive map. That's what's missing, and obviously that drove a lot of their console sales. That's why they've been number one console seller. That's why they've been leading the market in not only game sales, but also console sales, and been the leader for a while. Call of Duty is the one reason for that. And PlayStations are the favorite console in homes. Now that's starting to switch a little bit with Microsoft's angle, with Game Pass and the different things that they offer and how it's offered. We've talked about it before. You can play the crap on your phone. And that's where I think Sony's worried. But the bigger thing that I think they're worried about is, and it keeps getting ignored, I'm going to bring it up again, is this acquisition is not just about Call of Duty. It's also about King. I have a feeling that the main reason Microsoft wants King is because of the mobile market. And that's what Microsoft has never, ever been able to tap into. They've tried. Does everybody remember the Zune? Well, that's a Microsoft product, and it failed. So King is huge, is big for them, because this gives them access to the mobile market. And I think that's what Sony fears the most. Is Call of Duty, yeah, there's money there. But I think it's King, because King is going to give Microsoft exclusive channels to the mobile market, which Sony does not have.
And they've been open about that. Microsoft has straight up said, we didn't buy this for Call of Duty. We bought this for the mobile market. Yeah.
Yeah. King was only a $10 billion acquisition, and the entire acquisition is like 68 or 69 billion.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot there. And Call of Duty obviously is a huge slice of that. That's the big marketing push. But how popular is no, I forget the name of the stupid game. The anyways, it's a mobile game. Everybody has played it at some point, and that's the number one. And you get that. Well, now you can use that to your advantage. You can start pushing and publishing more games. What if that gives us more access to Game Pass stuff that we're unaware of? So I think there's a lot more to this, and a lot of people are ignoring the fact it's not about Call of Duty. It's about King. King Games is the most important piece of this acquisition.
I'm still of the mindset that by next month, we're going to get this all through, and we will again be following this very closely as the acquisition date gets closer. But there's a company that's been dumping a ton of money away and a ton of product, as at a recent earnings call, everyone owns one of these. Funko revealed that over $30 million worth of product will be written off as a loss and sent off to landfills. CEO Brian Mariotti said a new distribution center in Arizona was so full that the company has been bleeding cash renting shipping containers to hold all of the excess inventory. So this was their first quarter in a long time where they were down. It caused their stock to plummet. It went back up a little bit, but it did hurt them quite a bit, and they had to answer to the stockholders. So they're adjusting to that. They're producing less Funkos to match the demand that is currently going on. But do you think that, I was talking to Scott about this, do you think that this is finally the bubble bursting for Funko, or is this just a bad quarter?
It could be, but I think some of this might be pushover from the COVID delays, and that's why they're holding on to so much. Who knows? My local comic book store is blowing through pops at an incredible rate. So as I thought it was slowing down, their selection is growing, and it's one of their top sellers from week to week. So I'm still amazed that it's pushing that hard. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, maybe a little further back, a couple months ago, I shared a picture at a mall nearby.
Oh,
and
yeah.
there was a giant store, nothing but pops. I couldn't believe it. And the place was busy. It was packed. So I think the theory is still there. You can buy this cool little nifty figure that you can put on your desk or keep in the box or play with it, give it to your kid. And it's only, the entry point is roughly $10, $10 to $12. I think that's what the whole deal with it. Now, as far as the back end with them having so much product, again, I think that's the distribution chain finally catching up, and now they're stuck with it because retailers aren't buying them as quickly because it just takes time to sell through that stuff. It's not that the retailers are out of it; their stock is full. So I have a feeling that's just a distribution problem rearing its ugly head because the demand was so high, and now it's backing up.
It's funny that you mentioned the comic shop, because at mine, when I managed the one I go to still, I was very careful about Funko, because even a few years ago on this podcast, I would say the bubble is going to burst any minute now. They're producing so much of it. Every single thing has a pop. They're gonna eventually go to the bottom of the barrel with some of these characters. And it didn't. The bubble did not burst. It continued. I was still very careful about ordering. Like, for example, I think one of the last lines I ordered was Moon Knight, and then I kept it at just the Moon Knight himself. I didn't do any of the supporting characters. I'm like, no, we're not going to do the random offshoot sidekick or whatever. None of that shit. We're just going to keep it to the popular sellers, and that's what I did. And since I've left the comic shop, I have noticed, as you were mentioning, the pop section has gotten full. Now, granted, it's someone else ordering, so they're going to order differently than I am. But if you're saying that they're going through them fast at yours, then it could be that at this one too, they're like, all right, let's just stock up full at all times, because it is still a great gifting thing. It is still, the old owner and I would talk about it all the time. Do you remember the Mighty Mugs?
Yep.
The Mighty Mugs were like a little too before its time. Like, they were right there. They're basically Funkos, but they didn't catch on the way Funko did. And eventually they went out of business, and Funko came around, and they took all the money that Mighty Mugs were pretty much gonna get. So the owner and I were saying that they don't create action figures or collectibles that are affordable for kids, that are affordable for people to buy anymore. You go to Target and you look at some of these action figures, and they're going to run you $20 to $30 for an awesome action figure. and they're not even, honestly, they don't look great. I'm just going
Quality's
to be honest.
garbage.
Yeah, the quality's not great. So instead, people are going to gravitate, kids are going to gravitate towards Funko Pops or different toys. Like Leo, he's not into the Funkos, but he likes the Jurassic Park thing. So it's like, all right, for the same amount of money, he can get a bigger dinosaur instead. So I think I don't know if you've noticed, but it's much older collectors that are buying figures if they are. Everyone else underneath, you and I would grow up on like the TMNT toys or whatever, Transformers, and they were affordable, they were cool, they were great, but they're not selling to kids anymore. Funkos have kind of filled in that gap. They're what, $12.99 now or $11.99, and they make for a good gift and they make for a cool display and a kid for a little something to play with. So I think that that's what we narrowed it down to on the success of Funko. It's just that the action figure market is not helping.
Plus the enormous amount of IPs that they have access to. It's insane. Every week we get a new IP that they have access to and licensed to make a pop of. Your favorite TV show, your favorite movie, your favorite board game, your favorite food, your favorite candy, your favorite, fast food joint, junk food, like everything. They're making them off of literally everything. I'm surprised that we're still seeing new ones.
Well, I'm waiting for the Taco Bell Funkos. I'm not really collecting a lot of Funko these days, but they do a Taco Bell one or they do an Xbox one. I'm all in. They got me back in. We have some comic news this week as announced at the Comics Pro Summit last week. Comic distributor Diamond Distributors will be offering a cut of 40% to freight and shipping charges to comic book stores moving forward. So this came after they acquired the grading company CGA, which added residential volume to their contracts. So the company hopes that this sways shops to order Marvel, IDW, and Dark Horse books from them instead of other distributors like Simon & Schuster. So that ended up being a big thing. Like shortly after I left the comic shop, there were talks about how Marvel was moving over to Simon & Schuster, I believe it was at the time, or Penguin Random House.
Penguin.
It was Penguin, all right. And Penguin offered cheaper shipping rates than Diamond. And on top of that, Diamond had to order their books through Penguin. So it was kind of like you cut out the middleman of Diamond, then you order straight from Penguin, you save money, and you get your books at a better shipping than Diamond because their shipping was slightly better than Diamond's as far as the quality of when you would get your books. So there were pros and cons for every distributor. None of them were perfect. But when it came to costs, then comic shops were ordering from Penguin. And now Diamond, with given a 40% cut, that should be cheaper than Penguin. I think that most comic shops are going to move over back to Diamond because they all have accounts still with Diamond. So they're just going to go, all right, whoever gives me the cheaper price, I will go with. We'll take care of the damages and shipping later. But I think this is a positive move for Diamond.
Could be, but there's probably more to it than that, my guess. And there's probably some details missing there. Of course, the luring part is the 40% cut in shipping. The Simon & Schuster tried to merge with somebody. I forgot who it was, and it got denied by the government. So Penguin is now the solo. I don't know the ins and outs. I've just heard pieces of it. I know there's a lot of incentives for people to stay and order directly from Penguin for that. Things that we don't know is like the incentive variants and things like that. They may change going from one to the other. And then you can speak to obviously the rest of it is how they're shipped, how they're received. Like I remember you talking about how books came in from Lunar and how they were so, crappy packed. That may have changed by now because obviously it's more regular, whereas before it was fresh and new.
Yeah, Lunar was just getting into, it felt like, into the comic market. They were figuring things out. There was bubble wrap sometimes with books, and it's like, that's not going to do it. You got to really put some shit in there. And Diamond actually improved their boxes while I was still working at the shop because the way that they used to make them, it would ding up their books a lot more. But when they improved their boxes, it made all of the folds a lot stronger by just reinforcing the corners. And that was huge because then you wouldn't have as many dinged books when awful shipping companies like FedEx would, kick and ship their shit and throw their boxes. Unlike UPS, always does a great job. But when you get someone like USPS or FedEx, you're going to get damaged books. But those Diamond boxes were really, really solid. But there was a little bit of controversy here as the president of Comics Pro, Jen Haynes, criticized this move, this discount, with the following quote: "For a lot of retailers, that confirms suspicions that Diamond was marking up the shipping to cover their other business costs, and the concession is just to give people the price they should have gotten all along. So that announcement didn't go down as well as it could have." End quote. Now, Diamond was reached out to as far as this criticism, and they gave a PR response of, "Look at all the services we offer." So they kind of confirmed, like, yeah, but look at all the stuff we do for retailers. So that kind of pissed off retailers quite a bit. But if I were still working at the comic shop, I'd be like, look, fine, maybe that was the cost we should have gotten this whole time, but we're getting the discount now. So that's a positive. They could have just chosen not to.
Well, let's ask Jeppy. What does Jeppy have to say? The
Yeah.
Mafia.
Yeah, if he hears this, that's why I'm spinning this as a little bit of a positive, though. I don't want Jeppy to come after any of us here. I love all the brokettes. I love all the co-hosts. We don't want to end up at the bottom of the lake.
I can't do the voice like Kelly. So when Kelly's on next time, she can recap this story.
Yeah, Matt's pretty good at it too. When he's on next, I got to get him to do it. So we have a little bit of Netflix news, as according to Wednesday star Jenna Ortega, she clashed over creative choices while filming this show. So this surprised me, and I had to include it in here because it seemed like the show did really well, and I really enjoyed it. I just didn't suspect that there was some friction behind the scenes. So she said, quote, "Everything that she does, everything that I had to play, did not make sense for her character at all. Her being in a love triangle made no sense. There was a line about this dress that she has to wear for a school dance, and she says, 'Oh my God, I love it. I can't believe I said that. I literally hate myself.' And I had to go, no, there's no way. On Wednesday, there was not a scene in that show that I went home and was like, okay, that should be fine." End quote. So that really surprised me. One, she really cares about the character and fought back against the writers. But two, that it was so successful and well written that I just felt like everyone thought that this was a solid production all the way through.
Yeah, we see this from just about everything these days. Everything gets finished and an actor will come out and speak against what was going on. I mean, it's every other show or movie that we hear about this. There's too much creative control or too much pressure. And obviously she's young. She's still a teenager, I believe, 19. So immense pressure for her, of course. It's not her first role. She's been in stuff before, but this may not be just her speaking out. Maybe her publicist told her to do this because it gives her traction and more power, because the show was so well received. Because then this could lead to them, they could threaten replacing her, but then, what happens with season 2 won't go as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that are in play there with the politicking between the agents of said star versus the agents of said company. We hear this all the time. Like I said, like Bautista has spoken out about all his different experiences on different sets. I think we've heard it from multiple actresses and actors. Ben has even said some things. Like, it's just common where there's always conflict, and it's like you almost expect it at this point. I don't know. It sucks if it's true. How about that? I'll stand there.
Well, I think because season 2 was greenlit, I didn't expect her to speak negatively about the show, because it's like, all right, well, I'm getting more work out of this. Let's talk about this maybe after the show is canceled. But you brought up a good point. Maybe there is a negotiation happening right now where I think she does have enough pull to go, look, you want to replace me, you can replace me, but season 2 is not going to go well. Just wait till see what happens when Henry Cavill doesn't return for season 4 of The Witcher. And the show's going to get canceled. And the same would happen with Wednesday. You've got one of the biggest shows on this streaming service in its history. And there's no way they're going to try to place her as Wednesday. So you're right. It could be a move to try to get a little bit more money. And maybe some of this is true, like you were saying, but at the same time, why not use it, not keep it on the wraps and say, okay, but one, I want a little bit more creative control, or I want a little bit more money.
Yeah. And like I said, if true, I'm glad she's speaking out. And as should any actor or actress that's put in a position where they don't enjoy what they're doing and they need to speak about it. Like we've heard for the past 5 years, a lot of this Pandora's box has opened up in Hollywood. And it's good, because there was a lot of mistreatment amongst those people, and it's not fair. So this is probably some of the stuff that is common law now with the publicists and the agents, they probably openly discuss this with their clients and say, hey, anything out of line, we need to get it out there. We're not holding on to it for 20 years and announcing it later when nothing can be done.
Well, another streaming service that's getting a lot of play, especially when it comes to Star Wars, is Disney Plus. But Disney is kind of pushing back against the idea of getting Star Wars on the big screen. According to Variety, sources confirm that Patty Jenkins's Rogue Squadron and the film that Marvel's Kevin Feige were working on are both no longer in development. So the reception and box office returns on films like Solo: A Star Wars Story and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker have made Lucasfilm and Disney a little less trigger happy when it comes to Star Wars in theaters. Obviously, they're still producing a lot on the little screen with their streaming service. No word yet on whether Waida Taikiti's movie is canceled as well, but so far they're still moving forward with that one.
I mean, it makes sense. The most recent movies hadn't been well received, like you just said. And if they just keep it lower budget and on the streaming service, they can funnel all that revenue into the streaming service instead of the big budget for the movies that fail. I can't use fail because they don't meet their expectations. How about that? And yeah, you get people complaining about it. As far as their merchandise, they sell ridiculous amounts of merchandise. So I know there's money made there. That's big time. And it's such a collectible hobby. Like there's so many things that people buy and collect. And all the different companies that have promotions, whether there be movie theaters or McDonald's or things like that, with toys, posters, and tchotchkes, all that stuff. So you can't say that it's not making money or it failed, but what their expectations are obviously really, really high. And it doesn't, like, Solo technically didn't do the best, but it made money. And to go that effort to make a movie and have all that criticism, that's where I think the problems occur. And sure, just keep funneling it into the streaming service, because that'll, I think in their minds, if they do that, it should increase the numbers, right? That's the logic. Or they release one and one, like Netflix. They'll release a movie in the theater and on Netflix. That model's there too. We don't know those numbers, but it exists, and it makes them eligible for an Oscar. So, not that they're trying to do a Star Wars Oscar, but you know what I mean. Just full length feature films that could be premiered on a streaming service, and that could funnel sub numbers.
I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy in general, or even less so with Disney and their handling of Star Wars. But as an outsider looking in, I know that the Star Wars fan base are a lot less happy with the new trilogy. Yeah, they are. Then they are the TV show, though. There's a lot of criticism still with the show, especially recently with Ewan McGregor and Vader and some of the inconsistencies there with the characters. But overall, it seems like the Star Wars fan base seems to like the shows more than their movies. So that's why Disney, I think, has been announcing more of the TV shows, more of those projects, and kind of putting the films on pause until they can get either another person's vision. I don't know about you, but I think where they kind of fell short on the new trilogy is they should have tried to keep JJ on as much as possible. I know he only wanted to do the one film, but he came back for the third one. When they do a new trilogy, try to get one person to do that trilogy and keep them on, instead of having someone like, I think it was Johnson, who rewrote the second one and deviated from JJ's plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rian Johnson's great, but just because you have a great director doesn't mean they can turn out a fantastic film. I mean, you can go with your favorite director and give him a property like the MCU. Is it David Fincher? It doesn't mean that even Aronofsky or Fincher, you give them a Marvel movie, that doesn't mean that they're going to turn out to be a masterpiece.
Right.
Like, it is what it is. And not every director has the creative ability to take a property and make it what everybody desires. And I think we've seen some things like that. Like, I don't want to say a perfect example, but like Black Panther, right? Like, it's a superhero movie, and forgetting his name, did the movie, and it was, of course, it was well received, but Ryan Coogler, because he did Creed, and it's not a masterpiece, but it was a very, very popular Marvel movie for specific reasons. But then you also had the other side that was like, yeah, whatever, and the same thing can be said with that director. Like, you can't bring him to every movie, that person to every movie, and expect it to be, or the project, and expect it to be a masterpiece just because they did something really good before. And I think a good example of that is Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson's done some great films. He's done some stinkers. A lot of people will argue that the second in the third trilogy was not good because he had his hands in it, and whatever. People loved it, people hated it, and that's the Star Wars argument. There's two sides to that, and in the end, they make a ton of money, and it's extremely popular property that's been around for almost 50 years. So.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you bring up the director thing because it's very true. I'll see even fellow Snyder mutuals say, Zach's a huge fan of Star Wars. He's doing his own Star Wars over on Netflix with Rebel Moon, which I can't wait for, and I'll be there for it. But some are saying, well, he should do a Star Wars. And I'm like,
what if it sucks?
Well, Rebel Moon?
I'm not talking crap about it, but I'm just hypothetically, like, what if it sucks? Like that feeds into what I'm saying now. I'm not saying it will, but that's the same type of argument. You take somebody that's so good at a craft, you give them something else, and then they could not necessarily fail, but not produce something that everybody wanted or expected.
Well, the difference
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the point I'm getting at is they were saying give him Star Wars or give him an MCU movie, and I'm like, no, it's the same thing of like Rian Johnson trying to get him to do a Star Wars or whatever. I think that Zach should not get an MCU or a Star Wars film because it's so tied into these studios that I don't think they would let him tell the story he wants to tell.
Right,
I
no
think
control.
That's exactly right. And this is the problem now that he was having with Warner Brothers when even with the Snyder cut of, look, I want to use Jon Stewart Green Lantern, and they're like, no, we're not gonna. We have plans for him, and he's like, well, he almost quit right there again just because he's like, what are we doing here? Are we making a movie or are we not? So now he's got that freedom, thankfully, over at Netflix. But it's tough, man. If you're a big director like him, you're gonna butt heads with these studios because a lot of them are very protective of their brands. They think they know better than the person that's trying to tell the story. So bringing it back to Star Wars, it's gonna be. I don't want to be that person in charge. Like it's tough for you know how much I'm not rooting for Disney when it comes to Star Wars or a whole lot of things these days. But I would not want to be that person making those decisions right now of, okay, what movies do we bring to the big screen for Star Wars right now? Because it's gonna be hated upon by one or all three generations of Star Wars fans.
Yeah. And who knows how many arguments or creative problems are going on between Jenkins and the whole Star Wars side of it because of her flop with 84.
Right.
There's probably a lot of issues there. Who knows? We don't know any of that stuff. All we know is that she announced that she was doing the project, and it hasn't happened yet.
Didn't Feige say he was moving over to Lucas to do Star Wars?
No.
I thought that was like one of his things, that he was moving on from the MCU.
No, he's still... They haven't replaced him. He's still the main honcho for MCU. He may be dabbling, but there's no way in hell that... I just can't remember names today.
Kathleen Kennedy?
Guy from... No, not Kathleen Kennedy. She's the CEO. It's the two that are involved in the Star Wars shows on.
Oh yeah, the Clone Wars guys.
Well, he was in Iron Man. He played a character. He was also in Spider-Man. Plays the same character. He's the butler. He was in a good movie that you like. Yeah, Favreau, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. Those two.
Yep.
Those two are the main in charge at Star Wars because Kathleen Kennedy is just a figurehead at this point. They're the main brainchild that's doing all this stuff. So those two are probably fighting with Jenkins, 100%.
And those are the ones the fans like. At least for now they do. The Star Wars fans eventually churn on whoever is in charge. They did it with Lucas. They did it with JJ. They're actually doing it now with not Favreau. Who was the other one?
Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni's OG. Like he was supposed to be the person that was supposed to take over Lucas. And for some reason, he just didn't get it. It went to Kathleen Kennedy.
Right.
That was a shocker. And then what happens? Filoni's been the brainchild for everything that we've seen since the takeover. So he clearly is the one that gets it. And he clearly has shown that he got overlooked. Luckily, he stuck around because he just knows what he's doing.
Right. Well, I'm even seeing them start to churn on him a little bit where they're like, oh, he's only putting in his creations in there. It's the Filoni universe, not the Star Wars universe. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's happening.
Well, he has given Favreau, and Favreau's a newcomer. He's just come in there and just they've been working together, and between the two of them, they've done everything. Between directing Favreau's directed episodes. I don't think Filoni has. Filoni's just been the creative genius behind all of it. But it's a good pairing. It works. It's successful. They're making money. We don't know how much, but they're making money.
Well, staying on a little bit of Disney news here, When asked if he would ever join the MCU, superstar actor Nicolas Cage responded with, quote, "I don't need to be in the MCU. I'm Nick Cage," end quote.
Well, he's already in the MCU. He's Ghost
he?
Rider. He's Johnny
Well,
Cage.
they could
Or wrong
multiverse him,
name.
right?
Johnny Blaze. Sorry. Yeah, he's Johnny Blaze. He's in the MCU. He had 2 Marvel films already.
Have they
Part 1
connected
and
that
Part
into
2.
the MCU though?
Yeah, he's in there. That's a
I
weird
think you're
quote.
making shit up.
I think that's why the quote.
I don't believe you.
That's why he made that silly quote. He's in there.
When does the Ghost Rider show up in the MCU?
Agents of Shield.
That's not Nick Cage.
It is. It's MCU continuity.
Well, next up for Nick Cage is Renfield,
Renfield.
in which he plays Count Dracula opposite Nicholas Hoult and Aquafina. That releases on April 14th. He also just came out of that Pedro Pascal movie. I forgot what it was called, but it was the Biggest Talent, I think, or something like that. And it's solid, man. Just seeing them be friends and talk about his old films, it's worth at least one watch.
Well, wasn't it self-titled? What It's Like to Be Nicolas Cage or something?
It's called Massive Talent, and I think maybe there's a subtitle that has Nick Cage in there.
Yeah, because he plays himself, right?
Right.
Like he doesn't have no alias.
It's very good. Like it's good for just seeing him and Pedro be best friends, basically. Like I want a friend like Pedro.
Man of the hour, Pedro Pascal.
Oh, dude, he is all over the place.
He is the man.
It's like not a Disney guy. Well, fucking, he's on it all over HBO. Not an HBO guy. He's all over fucking Disney and everywhere in between. He's on SNL. Yep. He's on Mario. He did that fucking Mario thing.
Yep, he's everything.
Cannot hate on the guy. Ending things off with some Warner Brothers and Netflix news, as first off, Warner Brothers Discovery is collecting a newly remastered set of 17 of Fleischer's Superman shorts. So this show was available, I don't know if it still is, but it was on HBO Max. The Fleischer cartoons. These are before both of our times, but are these ones that you watched growing up?
Yes.
Me too.
Excellent. For what they were, excellent.
Even as a kid, like I would watch them, I'd be entertained by them. I revisited them a year ago and I'm like, these are fucking good, man. And when I dug into how they made them, because I was always like, how's it look so smooth the way that Superman moves? And they actually drew over someone acting out a lot of these scenes, and that's why it looks so realistic and it looks so smooth when they animated it. It's not just that they cleaned it up, but it's literally like live action traced upon. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
No.
It's pretty incredible. Next time if you do revisit them, like you'll kind of notice that there's almost an extra dimension to the way Superman moves, that it's like, okay, there's no way someone just drew it. And I'm not taking away any credit from the animators, because it still could have been done terribly. And we have seen when they do it terribly, like I think I'm trying to remember. I know people love The Hobbit animated, but there were some rough shots in that one. But for the Fleischer cartoons, and I know the Fleischers weren't involved in every single one of those shorts, but I know the early ones, they look absolutely incredible. That was an inspiration for Batman the Animated Series, and as you're watching the cartoon, you can see where the Art Deco inspiration was. They could almost be in the same fucking universe. Like, I know he has his own Superman in the Timverse, but like they could have crossed over at any point and it would have been seamless.
Yeah. I mean, age is things like that are a thing of their time.
I might show one to Leo just to see if it's way out of his realm or if it could still catch kids even. So I might show him one or two of those. I tried showing him Superman the Animated Series. He had no interest, but he likes Batman the Animated Series. Maybe it's just a Superman thing. I know for me, as I grew up, I grew to appreciate Superman more the older I got. But as a kid, Batman's got that cool factor.
I agree.
So this final news story, over the course of his Netflix live stream comedy event, and I think you and I talked about it when the event happened, Chris Rock, Selective Outrage is the name of this special. He opened up about the Will Smith slap from the Oscars last year. He said, quote, "I got smacked like a year ago. People are like, did it hurt? I got Summertime ringing in my ears. I love Will Smith my whole life. He makes great movies. I rooted for Will Smith my whole life. And now I watch Smith's newest film, Emancipation, just so I could watch him get whooped," end quote. So there it is. Finally, he's turned down a bunch of talk shows to talk about the slap, all kinds of offers, turned it all down, and he saved it for his comedy special. So It sounds like things are not cool between them. They did not at all make any amends, or Will Smith at least didn't make any amends with him. Some could argue that Chris Rock, by making fun of someone with that disease that he apparently didn't know about with Will Smith's wife, that he should have also apologized. So it sounds like it's not happening.
Yeah, there's tensions on both sides. They're both big figures. Whatever.
Do you side with either one?
I don't care. They either hash it out or they don't, or they keep it going because in the end, they're two comedians. They're going to use it as a bit. So who cares?
Well, you know who hasn't gotten slapped or will not get slapped, I don't think, at this award show? It's at the Broscars. Fucking Broscars have never had any controversy. There's never been any violence. There's never been anyone saying something off color that ends up in the news that someone has to apologize for. I like Ricky Gervais, but there's some craziness that's happened there too when he hosted some shows. Does not happen at the Broscars. Clean record. And we are getting another showing this year. And here are your Broscars 2023 nominees. We'll have the winners later on, either late this month. Yeah, later on this month is where we're going to have the winners. But just so you can see it, in case you missed it on Twitter, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories this year. So we've got your nominees for Best Cinematography: James Friend from All Quiet on the Western Front, Ben Davis from Banshees of Inisherin, Jaron Blaschke from The Northman, Frank Pasingham from Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and Claudio Miranda for Top Gun Maverick. Bobby, would you like to take Best Supporting?
Best Supporting, male and female combined. We've got Brendan Gleeson from the Banshees of Inisherin, Carrie Condon from the Banshees of Inisherin, Angela Bassett from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, David Bradley from Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Judd Hirsch from The Fabelmans.
Next category is Best Lead Actor, male and female combined. Nominees are Brendan Fraser from The Whale, Alexander Skarsgård from The Northman, Cate Blanchett from Tar, Ben Affleck from Deep Water, and Colin Farrell from Banshees of Inisherin.
We got Best Director, Martin McDonagh from Banshees of Inisherin, Todd Field from Tar, Robert Eggers, The Northman, Joseph Kosinski from Top Gun Maverick, and Guillermo del Toro and Mark Gustafsson from Pinocchio.
Final nominees for Best Picture: Top Gun Maverick, Banshees of Inisherin, The Northman, Dragon Ball Super Superhero, and The Fabelmans. So a huge congratulations to all nominees. I think I speak for Bobby, myself, the rest of the Brocat Corps in saying that even if whoever doesn't end up winning in each of the categories, still a huge round of applause and a pat on the back. Give yourself a pat on the back, because to be nominated for the Broscars in itself is a win. So a huge congratulations to all of the nominees. And once again, we will have the winners later this month.
Yeah, we're hopefully going to have Colin Farrell guesting as well to discuss his win. No,
we'll
not
see.
really. Just kidding.
We'll see. No, we'll see. I mean, depends on who's going to be the other host on there. I don't want Colin Farrell to take away any spotlight from the other host that week. You know, I don't want him to plug in the Penguin or anything like that. You know, I don't. So I don't know. I might give him that tonight. He's trying to get on. You know, I was trying not to let that loose on there and let it out there, but you know, I don't know. We'll see how talks go between now and then.
What you do is you schedule the same day as Ben, and they both come on. They can talk Batman together.
There you go. Although if Ben gets on, then I think we'd have to. Not that I'm saying we're at all swayed by anyone that's on, but I think we'd have to give him Best Lead Actor. I don't know. I'd feel obligated. I think I'd do it. But there you have it. So your nominees, and we will discuss the winners again later this month. We have our Patreon comment for this week from Adrian, who referenced last week's episode by saying, quote, "For the Mortal Kombat 12 game, I would buy it if they included Castiel, the angel from Supernatural. That would never happen. I thought Hasbro owns the rights to Power Rangers now. I prefer the original Mortal Kombat 95 film over the 2021 film." End quote. So I'll stop there. So he said he doesn't think that'll happen. Castiel from Supernatural. Man, Supernatural. People used to ask for that stuff all the time at the comic shop. But how about you, Bobby? Is there a character that you would want to see, no restrictions, We've seen crazy characters added already to the roster, like the Xenomorph, TMNT. Is there a character, a horror icon, or any kind of character you would want to see in Mortal Kombat 12?
I mean, they can bring Freddy Krueger back like that when they had him in MK9, I believe it was, or MK10, one of the two.
They had
as far
Freddy,
as a newer
Jason,
character, yeah, they had them all in there. Michael Myers, I think. No.
I don't remember them having Michael, but that'd be a good one.
No, it wasn't Michael Myers. It was the Chainsaw Man. That's what it was.
Leatherface.
He was in there. Leatherface was in there. I guess going with the horror theme fits well because of obviously horror and what Mortal Kombat is. If they were bringing a flashy character, it doesn't make sense to put a DC character in there because they already have the other franchise that they do on and off with Injustice. So I don't know.
Because they've had the Joker in the past.
Yeah, they always put the Joker in there.
Yeah.
But again, the Joker's from Injustice, so they'll usually include him as a DLC. And then when they do the Injustice, they'll include
right.
Sub-Zero and Scorpion as DLC characters or add-ons.
Do you have a preference on the Mortal Kombat films as far as the 95 one versus the 2021?
They're both fine. They're just different times, different effects. The most recent one got a lot of crap, but I thought it was fine. The story they're trying to tell, if it pans out, seems interesting. We'll see where it goes.
Finishing off his quote, he said, "The new film just doesn't call my attention. Besides, it's Warner Brothers, so I am still boycotting that studio," end quote. And I do think they dropped the ball on the new Mortal Kombat because of that. Speaking of Funko Pops, man, that Cole Funko Pop, I was so mad when we got that in the store because I was like, no, I did not order this Funko Pop. Let's send this one back. And I think the owner was like, well, let's just keep it and we'll see if it sells. And I'm like, all right. And it took a few weeks, but someone finally bought that Cole Mortal Kombat figure. And I'm like, all right, that's it. And the owner's like, well, it's sold. Let's order another one. I'm like, no, that was a blessing from the universe. Like that was the universe showing us grace. We got lucky. We're not going to sell any more fucking Coles. If Cole had turned into Scorpion by the end of the film, if he became the new Scorpion, like that was his ancestor or whatever, sure, maybe we could sell more Cole. But he was this lame ass fucking character in the movie. He should be replaced by Johnny Cage in the sequel. Not that I'll be seeing it, but he's just such a fucking vanilla character. Oh, man. Funkos that don't sell. I bet you there's a shit ton of Coles at the landfill. But thank you so much, Adrian, and the rest of our Patreon backers for helping out the show. Let's head into the final portion of today's episode. It's the Brocat Block, what Bobby and I have been up to since you last heard us. So, Bobby, what's been up with you? What have you been playing, reading, watching, or what's been making you broke?
I cleaned up my stack. My read pile was pretty cleaned up, and then it grew again, unfortunately. So I got some cleaning right here. Yeah, bring it. Make Julian jealous. So the pile was pretty cleaned up, and then it came back because I just got too many titles. I'm going to cut my subs on some things. There's some things I need to cut. I think I'm going to cut TMNT, actually. I don't know what they're doing anymore.
It doesn't have any direction, man.
I'm enjoying it slightly, but it's like there's an event going on now. So I'm waiting for the event to end, and then I'm going to cut it. Detective Comics was okay for a while, then it got bad, then it got good, then it got bad, and then Ram V's on it now, and it's like I thought it was good, now I'm losing it. So I think I'm just going to drop it completely. Batman is the main title, is just on and off, but I don't want to cut it.
Is that any good?
It has its moments, and they keep introducing new characters. So I'm looking at it from a perspective, I'm going to regret dropping it and then picking it up when I don't have a book that I want in the middle of that. So I'm looking at it the wrong way. It's not bad, though. There's a couple good issues in there. There's a good story they just finished with Azure, or that one I asked you about. I don't understand that alternate Batman. It's the AI.
Yeah. Right.
So there was a really good story arc with that. I think it's just finishing up. So that's been entertaining. So that's why I haven't dropped that one. They've been consistent with at least putting something in there. And Zdarsky's writing it currently, so he's pretty good. As far as games, I did jump back into Destiny 2. I got Lightfall. We went in, we got the expansion. I went ahead and got the annual pass for the multiple seasons. So got some friends that are playing it, and I'm going to keep myself involved. I'm just not going to play it as much because it can be a giant time sink. That's been enjoying. I'm hoping that some of the others that have discussed it are going to play it, do it as well. So that'll be cool. Other news, there's been a lot of news for me this past week, so gloating time.
Sure.
As you
Please.
mentioned earlier, this is all Pokemon related. So the World Championship decks released in stores last week. I'm featured in them. It's pretty cool.
They're your decks,
wrong
man.
word. Wrong words. Featured is the wrong word. I am
No, you're
credited
featured.
in those. I'm credited in those books. I say this coming from not being recognized for anything ever and having something. I look at it as like this thing can be bought on store shelves, not just in your hobby store. You can go to Target, you can go to Best Buy, you can go to your local hobby store, you can go to, if there's a Kmart near you and they're still open, like anywhere where Pokemon cards are sold, hell, even the dollar store or Five and Below. And if you see these championship decks from 2022 season, London World Championships, I'm in them. And it's pretty cool. Like, how many people could say that outside of an actor, actress, or producer that they're on stuff like that and not have to worry about it because it's their profession, right? So the fact that I'm in something that can be bought on store shelves, that's really cool.
To non-Pokemon players, the reason why this is a big deal is they only release these once a year, and that's only when they host Worlds. You know, we're in a post-COVID world; it's not a guaranteed thing anymore. But when they do, they release the winning decks for this worldly tournament. They're not playable as far as legality, but they're reproductions of those decks. They've got a different border on it. They're signed. But you were one of the judges for this event, and you are credited in the booklet for that year's. I mean, it's a part of Pokemon history. Let's be real. It is a part of. Some may argue that these are the championships decks and whatever. I'm still going to work this up as these are your fucking decks, man. You're in every single one of those. You're printed on there. You're on copyrighted material. It'll say right on there your name. Do you want to give out your full name so that they know what to look for, or just kind of leave it?
It's on the second to third to last page, where it says professors from around the world, and I'm in there. And it's just super cool. I'm shocked. So I've taken it to my advantage. Like some people in the shop are like, I don't know if I want to buy one of those. I'm like, hey, if you buy it, I'll sign it. And they're just like, what? And I just explain like I'm in there, and sure enough, they buy it, they open it up, get the book, and I sign it. So it's really cool.
I'm telling you, man, I know you order a lot from CGC, but send them an email, and I'm curious to see, because I would get one graded of, hey, I'm credited in here. Here's my ID. Here's a picture of me judging at this event. Will you do a CGC signature label for any? I run a business. I manage a business, and I can get a bunch of these. Just say stuff. I can get some of these ordered in. And would you do a signature series label if I were to sign some of these? What would I need to do as far as a witness? Do I need to go to a convention? Will you create a special slab just for these decks? Do you already have those slabs? These are questions we need to be asking, Bobby.
Yeah, I need to go to MegaCon and have a booth set up to do a signature series event.
When you go, you should ask them. They'll be there.
I will. I'll ask. I'll bring the book too.
Good. Because I'll get some slabs.
Other Pokemon news. I am fortunate to be selected for the European International Championships that is happening in London in April. So I have been selected to that staff. I will be the seniors assistant head judge. So that'll also be my first lead role in an international competition abroad. So really, really, really grateful for the opportunity. I just found that out on Friday. So really cool, really happy and blessed to be able to do that. And the other news is it was announced today. I am going to be the head judge for the Masters division at the Charlotte Regional Championships in 2 weeks.
Oh, congratulations, man. Very good.
Thank you.
It opens up another question too, and I'm still on this fucking CGC thing because I just want to almost be obnoxious about it to CGC of, if I were you, I'd be like, hey, I judged this event, and here are these promo cards that were exclusive to that event. If I sign that promo card, will you CGC signature series it? Signed by event judge, Bobby.
You're not wrong.
Right? You know what I mean? It's almost like 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever they call it. Like, you're connected in to Pokemon. It's official. So it should be signature series.
Not wrong. But lots of good news recently with Pokemon, and I'm embracing it. It's cool. New opportunities for me. It's cool because it ties into what I do in everyday life in a way. So I just keep on trucking. The London trip is free. They pay for it. So it's a blessing. I'm very happy, grateful that I get those opportunities, because without these opportunities, I wouldn't be able to travel as much as I do. So
right.
It's really cool. I'm very grateful.
And also makes you pretty valuable to the company, man. They should never get rid of you. You're ingrained into the Pokemon community.
Yeah, I do provide a lot of inside baseball within the right margins of, around NDAs and stuff. But it's helpful because you take any other business that doesn't have that asset and they can't do as well or navigate properly because they don't know certain things, because maybe they're hyper focused on Yu-Gi-Oh or hyper focused on Magic and not realize the potential that Pokemon can do for your store, which you understand. You've had it at your store previously, where Pokemon League can do a lot of things for you, bring in a whole different audience, make you a whole lot of different money. So it's not just about the flashy things that I'm speaking of, but it's more of the bottom grassroots stuff with children and getting them involved, and the families and the parents, and how you discuss and teach them and keep them involved and educated, because in the end it can help a child progress through school and education and getting along with others. And we're in a time where a lot of kids are sheltered and don't want to go out or don't want to be around other people. Well, I've seen Pokemon change their lives, and the parent just like their parents are completely like, how did you do this? And I'm like, it's not me, it's this game. Like, you get it ingrained in them and they enjoy it, and then the parents can turn on and use that as a tool.
Yep.
Like, you would understand, like, hey, well, you want to go play Pokemon, well, you better clean your room. Well, you want to go play Pokemon, well, you better do your homework. And guess what? It works. As long as they actually enjoy it. I've seen the results. It works. It's crazy. And that's how important it is from a local. If anybody out there is listening to this and you have a local Pokemon league, that's what it's all about. Get the kids involved. COVID kind of destroyed a lot of those attendance numbers for those stores, and for good reason, obviously. But now we got to rebuild. We got to get kids involved again. Kids have gone through a rough time these past 3 years, so trying to get them back involved in Pokemon and in this way can do very big things. Like, look at you played Pokemon when you were younger. Look at all the rest of our brocats that embrace Pokemon. Pokemon was an important part of their lives early on. I'm a different story. I wasn't. I've only jumped onto this since 2015, and I'm not afraid to hide that. And a lot of people are shocked when I tell them that, because they think I'm a lifelong Poke fan, and I'm not. It's not that I don't like it. I just missed it. The timing was just off. I was really into sports and other things, and growing up and becoming an adult, and I just didn't. I literally just missed it. So, but my siblings, they did. Like, my younger brother was all about it, and then my younger sister, she was not all about it, but she was familiar with it and got into it a little bit. So the timing was just off for me, and I didn't really look back at it. So it can do a lot for you. There's proof of it out there. So again, another channel. You can talk to me on Twitter or Discord. We can discuss those things.
Kids are definitely the bread and butter when it comes to the success of Pokemon. That's something that I especially pushed when I managed the comic shop, when I ran Pokemon for the 2 stores, the old store that was in Orlando, and then when I got promoted to the new store that was in a completely different city, and people followed me from that Pokemon League to the new one, to the new store, and from there I helped get the local community who used to go to the other comic shops or TCG stores, and they would come to mine, and because I had that experience of running Pokemon in Orlando, they were like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, at least it looks like. So, and so I had the promos set up, and I did all the graphics for the store, and became sort of, the local face for Pokemon. And then when I eventually left the shop, even when I started working for you at yours, there were Pokemon players that recognized me still from there. So it was like getting the
parents.
It was the parents, man, because I could cater to the competitive community if I wanted to, but I didn't. I instead catered to kids. I catered to people that were learning how to play, and I made it fun for them. So when I did that, I don't know why, but it made the community grow more, because you know what it is it got new players involved. That was the key. It got the entry for newer players was a lot lower when you played at my store, as opposed to if you just went to tournaments. Now, I would have my tournament, and usually the locals would not often place in first, but they would still have fun, and they would still show up with the people that would play at my regular league every week, and they would recognize them, and they would still have fun because they would recognize the people that were there. So that really has been, at least at that time, that was the success. And I don't know what it is like in post-COVID world to try to run a regular Pokemon League with promos. Promos are no longer really in play since then, but from what I hear, it's tough. And from what I hear, the younger players have not really come back like they were pre-COVID, and it's a shame, but it's a chance to rebuild, right? It's a chance to try to get new players back in.
Yeah. And all the kids that I knew, they're all grown up now. So you
Right.
can't rely on the same kids because they're aging out of those age divisions. So it just has to cultivate and start over new. And that's where the difficult part is now. And that's not for me to figure out. That's a Pokemon Company problem. They'll figure that out. They've got the hundreds of billions of dollars to do that, and they're trying. I have a feeling there are more things down the path that will help with that and assist with it, but we're just not there yet. And I've had like another crazy story like regarding Pokemon. I have people that I don't even know. They come in the store and they look at me once or twice and they're like, "Hey, wait, were you just in like whatever said city? Let's say Secaucus, or were you in Knoxville this past weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man, I thought I saw you. You were on Twitch, or I saw you on YouTube." I'm like, "Yep, that was me." Because for those of you that don't know, I do a lot of judging on the streams. So that's been a project that I've had working on with Pokemon Company and another company that does that stuff. So I've been table judging those events, not events, sorry, those matches during the events. Yeah, so I'm getting recognized by people I don't even know, and it's weird. It's cool, but it's weird. Like I don't expect that type of notice. And then some of my locals will come in and they'll just tell other random people like, "Yeah, this guy's famous, man. He's on the internet. Go look at him." And I was like, "Man, who cares? I'm just sitting. I'm just
because
sitting
you don't
there.
like that. That's why they're doing it. That's why I'm doing it too. I'm going to start promoting like this week's episode. I might even put joined by Pokemon's Bobby.
And then Scott, you get people like Scott, like, "Oh, I'm not watching that tournament unless Bobby's at the table." Like,
that's right. Yeah, that's it, man. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear a lot of Pokemon stuff is happening with you, and I'm not kidding. I think I'm going to put Pokemon's Bobby on here for the show. That's what it's becoming. But on my end, I did have, speaking of CGC, thanks to you because you sent in some books and cards for me again. I had some pretty cool returns. If you haven't seen them, they're over on Discord. Head on over to our Collector's Corner, and I put them up there, and you always post some stuff, and then John embarrasses, but he destroys us both, right? He puts our collections to shame when he posts like
nothing.
One book. He'll put up like
nothing.
First Silver Age appearance of Catwoman he put up recently, and I'm like, yeah, you and I could combine our collection together, and it would not even phase like a quarter of his.
Yeah, like I have like one or two books that can come in comparison to what he's got, and everything else is just cool stuff. But he's just got the stuff. Like he has that. He's the right person for that hobby because he has.
Oh yeah,
he's got so much.
That's right. And you can check it out on Discord again, but I put up the Ultimate Fallout, which is the first appearance of Miles Morales, Green Lantern number 52, which is simply an iconic cover. It's got Sinestro and Hal Jordan meeting in the middle, and they've got each of their lanterns in the center. So if you saw it, you'd recognize it. Even a casual comic reader would recognize that cover because they've redone it so many times. I also got Detective Comics number 783 graded, which is the first appearance of Nisa Al Ghul. So now I have all the first appearances of the Al Ghuls graded. Maybe I'm lying because do you consider Damian Wayne an Al Ghul?
He is an Al Ghul.
So maybe, although he goes by Damian Wayne, not Damian Al Ghul, I don't know. I might have to track down, although I'm fucked now because fucking alleged pedo gun announced that he's going to be in a film. So I waited too long to get first appearance of Damian. I do have his first appearance as Robin. So maybe I'll get that graded.
Well, you know who has all of them? This guy. I got all of them.
Oh, you got first actual Damien? Is that Son of the Demon? Is that what that is?
Yeah. I got his first page minor appearance, and then his first full appearance, first cover appearance, and then first cover appearance as Robin. They're all 4 issues.
All right, because if it's Son of the Demon, I do own that issue. So maybe
I'll share
it.
I'll share it in the channel a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah, let me know what the label says, especially because maybe I'll get that graded next. But I also sent in Sonic the Hedgehog 30th anniversary because those are always like milestone issues, like the 25th one, 30th one, and then Superman Red Sun number 1, which is, Mark Miller has been, he's not been the kindest on Twitter anymore, and I won't support him in the future, but he did write one of my favorite comic books of all time, and that's Superman Red Sun. So it came back at 5.5. I did not expect it to come back high anyway, because I know in the back there was a lot of smudging. It's kind of like a trade paperback almost. It doesn't have the greatest quality, but it did not matter. I don't intend on selling this issue. I just intended on preserving it because it is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite comic book miniseries of all time. And then I also sent in some Pokemon cards, which you can also check out on Discord. But yeah, I mean, thanks again to you. And there's some more pictures to come because Bobby's got a haul that he's going to take over to MegaCon. If you're a local Broquette, you're going to MegaCon on Thursday, you might keep a lookout for Scott and Bobby because it sounds like they'll be at that show. I do also have a Sophia update. Sophia being my incoming daughter. We've got Leo as my son and Sophia. And the latest update is, I don't know if we shared it last time with Leo, but the reason why Leo was induced was because Kelly had some really high blood pressure leading up to the final weeks of the pregnancy. So it became a risk to her and to the baby. Well, we thought it'd be different with Sophia. Maybe it's, I don't know, every baby's different, right? Well, it turns out that she's having the same issue with Sophia as well. So there's high blood pressure you don't mess around with. So it sounds like they're gonna have to induce as well with Sophia. So, we're hoping that things go smoothly like it did for the most part with Leo and just kind of hoping, best case scenario, it happens just like with Leo, right? She gets induced. We have Sophia and then Kelly recovers. So I know some Broquettes like to get the pregnancy updates, especially with Kelly not being on as often as you guys every month and a half. So that's kind of been the latest update and a little worried, but it's every pregnancy, I guess, could have its complications, right?
Yeah. Well, good news is not the first. So, she's experienced this before. Well, both of you have, for that matter.
Yeah, and she'll be on, I think, one more time right before we're set to induce. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how she feels, and we've been monitoring that blood pressure in the meantime. But that's about it for me this week, and that's it for the Broquette Block too. I want to thank you, Bobby, for being on, sharing your Pokemon news and your insights when it comes into the world of video games, comics, the streaming services as well. So thank you again for being on, and please share where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at QBANSLIM. That's Cuban Slim. And you can find me in Discord. I'm there. Talk to me, ask me questions, interact, come post the cool stuff in the Collector's Corner. And as always, I tell everybody has multiple Discord channels. Just join, put it on mute, and you can just jump in and jump out whenever you want to.
And if you want to be heard right here on the show, head on over to speakpipe.com/thereasonsimBroke. You can leave us a voicemail, 90 seconds or less, and you can be heard here on the show, whether it's a comment, a question, or any kind of voicemail that you want to be heard on the show. That's once again, speakpipe.com/thereasonsimBroke. But we do have some pretty exciting interviews coming up. Not going to reveal those quite yet because they haven't yet officially been recorded, so I'll leave it there. But there's, especially in the world of comics and gaming, those do intersect quite a bit. So in the interviews that we have set up. So we do appreciate it, and we have some fun stuff coming up in addition to the weekly show. These are going to be extra episodes. So thank you for staying subscribed if you are subscribed. If this is your first episode, hopefully we provided enough insight or information or humor to get you on for the next one. But I've been Daniel, joined by Bobby, and Broquette Core. All will be well. So Julian from Lazy Game Guys, no longer single. We lost out, man. I think that's it. Game over.
Yeah. I like how he didn't say anything, too. He just moved on.
He tried to keep this a secret from everyone.
He did. Not cool.
Shame, Julian. I'm going to have him on next week. Maybe I should send along a message or something. I don't know. I'll try to remember. Try to grill him a little bit.
But what is it going to be like when he actually comes to visit?
It's going to be awkward. Yeah.
Awkward.
Maybe he'll bring him along. Then we'll have to test him out to see if he's truly worthy of Julian. Got to do all that. Got to play that game.
The test.
Yeah, we got to. Did you know that he sharded once on stream?
The ultimate test is we have to take him and his partner over to the giant statue of Triton at the resort.
Yes. And see which way.
With Scott. and
Yeah,
see what happens.
exactly. It's kind of like when you put a pet in front of like the two owners, like on people's court. Like, who really should the pet be with? Like, that's what it's going to be with Julian. Put him in between Triton and his partner, and see which way his dick goes.